お前はどこまで見えている。俺の死に様か。
And Kakashi stopped abruptly. The words of a small sweetheart hit exactly on target and opened up old wounds. The girl sent his common sense into a knockout with 2 sentences, reminding him of a lesson he once learned after losing his closest friends. Suddenly I felt ashamed in front of myself and sensei. Sighing heavily, Hataki closed his eyes, trying to concentrate and come up with a further plan of action. Here's a reptile, found how to use it. He silently turned around and rushed into the thick of the battle. That's disgusting. Naru is right, he will scatter them in no time, but you never know, there are those who can still interfere with the fulfillment of his mission. Kakashi is not omnipotent, and even with a burden on his shoulder, I knew you would listen to me. Sniffing, the young kunoichi relaxed, and her heart became a little calmer, and at the same moment she barely noticeably stretched her lips in a malicious smile. It worked. After all, this ninja Anbu will help her friends, which means there is nothing to worry about. After all, Anbu are strong. At least that's what Kurama says. He saved her team, scattered the enemy shinobi without even letting go of his ward, and received only a minor scratch on his shoulder, because with a living burden it is not so easy to dodge attacks as quickly as possible. And his burden sighed admiringly, marveling at the strength and skill of this guy or man in a mask more like a dog's face with red stripes. Fast, agile, strong, and so. Another sigh of admiration made Kakashi roll his eyes. It's good that at least she doesn't see her face, otherwise she probably would have fallen in love, because hormones are so strong in a young body. Thank you, Uzumaki said softly, placing her icy palms on Hataki's warm shoulder. From this gesture, he almost lost his footing. A simple touch knocked him off balance in a split second. Getting old? Small fragile palms immediately lit up with a faint golden glow. He saw this for the first time and was incredibly glad that the mask was on his face and the girl would not see his amazement. These few moments he felt a pleasant warmth enveloping his hand and a pleasant tingling in the place where there was a cut from the kunai. That's all I can do to thank you, the voice was dripping with undisguised gratitude. Soft, velvety with warm notes, caressing the ear. Paradoxical changes. Hataki involuntarily compared her to the sea, just as violent and unpredictable and changeable. And I also made a mental note to myself that I should find out what kind of jutsu she used. Golden glow, an unusual technique for Irenen jutsu. It's you. The blonde screamed to the whole village, rushing at full speed to the strolling Hataki. Her loud scream snapped him out of his thoughts. He was feeling bad again. Another mission with dirty work, another sin on the soul. The work of the ANBU has always been filled with such sins as murder. No, it wasn't the fact that he had to be a murderer again that upset him, but the fact that Guy saw all his blackness, and his reaction made him feel lousy. A few friends remained so, because they were not witnesses of his ruthlessness, and then an unspoken best friend saw how Kakashi, without even blinking an eye, cut an entire squad, bathing in blood. Also the intense work of the ANBU is dirty and vile. And with each life taken away, the void that has long settled in the heart of the blonde is filled with pitch darkness. After all, there was not even a sense of guilt when he took the life of shinobi, who could well have a family in their village. His hand did not tremble when he took the lives of both women and teenagers sent as cannon fodder on dangerous missions. He is worried about this impenetrable abyss in his heart, over which darkness was gathering. It undoubtedly infects the soul, absorbing the tiny remnants of everything that personified light. Only the memory of Rin and Obito did not allow the darkness to take his heart into its arms forever. I recognized you. By the hair. Naruto stood right in front of the man, resting her hands on her knees and catching her breath from jogging. As soon as her breathing stabilized, she straightened up and with truly feline curiosity began to examine the stranger who turned out to be a familiar person. The blue gaze painfully slowly, impossibly intently glided over the contours of the face, the mask, the only visible eye, the hair standing up straight. Yes, no doubt, she had seen him before. Kakashi walked past, ignoring her words, mentally shivering from the greedy gaze. Annoying. It's not clear why, but it pisses me off terribly. Naive and innocent, too pure and sunny, and also weak and defenseless, but most importantly and very repulsive, stupid. The complete opposite of him, the opposite of sensei in the end. Hey, are you dumb? She blocked his path with her arms spread wide, which made Hataki grin. A pathetic attempt to stop him. Naruto was offended by the fact that he pretended not to see her, and his heart ached unpleasantly from such coldness. Well, no, to pretend that she is an empty place will not take a ride. Yes, she will get anyone, and now she will prove to herself that even such an unapproachable and cold shinobi will still pay attention to her. Konoha's copying ninja bypassed her without any problems, jumping onto the roof of a neighboring building, continuing to maintain the appearance as if he had not just been examined and hailed. That won't do, Goldilocks muttered through her teeth with displeasure, and slyly narrowing her piercing blue eyes, followed Hataki with the grace of a fox. Yes, stop you. Jumping on the roofs, Naruto shouted after her, trying not to lose sight of her goal, which was rapidly moving away from her, becoming a black dot against the background of taller buildings, sparse tree crowns and a cloudless sky. So it's definitely you, since you're running away, the girl shouted cheerfully, glad that she found someone who helped her then. It's true, this tall blonde man, if he runs away at the sight of her person, trying to avoid, then he is definitely the same member of the ANBU who dragged her home on his back by force. It was an exciting adventure then, but Kakashi wouldn't be an excellent ANBU if he didn't know how to hide skillfully, almost merging with the local habitat. A second later, he disappeared from the roof, abruptly jumping down a dark block and hiding in a bookstore behind a shelf with novelties, where a large poster of another perverted book by Jiraiya was just stretched. That's so lucky, if it wasn't for that girl, he wouldn't have found out soon enough that a new volume of Ika Ika had been released. Oh, you libertine. The girl screamed at the whole store, running in there like a little hurricane and smiling venomously at all 32. He can't hide from her now, besides, she has one little secret, among other small and not quite secrets. For example, she's an amazing censor. Even if it wasn't for the remarkable head of hair, she would have found him with the help of his own chakra. The little one seemed to jump out of the ground, and even screamed at the whole store so that the shelves vibrated from the tone of her voice, and he would rather keep silent about people. Tonight, an interesting rumor about his addiction will be walking around Konoha, judging by the interested and condemning glances directed at them, while Kakashi was stunned by the fact of surprise. Naruto, grabbing the man by the arm, at the same time having made considerable efforts, she dragged the unresisting blonde into the street away from the inquisitive villagers. How did you manage it? Hataki asked with resignation, trying to figure out how to get out of the clutches of this girl. This little one strangely easily gets away from him, finds him, and also does not let him escape, an amazing ability. Such a little secret, she says significantly, and drags the drooping man behind her. And your voice sounds much nicer than through a porcelain mask. Uzumaki turned her head to him, smiling shyly. Honestly, it came out by itself. It's just true that his voice seemed pleasant to her with its coolness, and from this thought her cheeks involuntarily turned red. Yes, how many times will she knock the ground out from under his feet with her strange behavior? First a libertine, now he has a pleasant voice. From him? Yes, he no longer remembers when his voice was pleasant, because he always speaks clearly, coldly, and with notes of cynicism. Kakashi-senpai, Tenzo as usual appeared out of nowhere almost in front of his nose and for some reason suddenly wanted to kill him. For a long time, however, Kakashi did not have such thoughts. But everything remained only within his mind. Outwardly he was absolutely calm, but Yamato, having worked with him for a long time, saw in the depths of Senpai's dark eye the promise of heavenly punishment. And only now, unsuccessfully, a successful experiment Orochimaru saw the companion of An Biashnik. "That's your name, Kakashi." The girl's eyes sparkled with delight. "That's so bad. I didn't have to beg or promise under terrible tortures and not really try to find out the name of her hero." Not only did she find out what her escort looked like, she also heard his name. Yes, today is definitely her day. Kakashi with a girl? Tenzo was a little confused, which, in principle, is a strong understatement of the degree of his surprise. Flapping his big brown eyes, he stared incredulously at the captain's elbow, which this very girl clung to tightly. "Tenzo," Hatake said reproachfully, still unable to restrain his emotional impulse. "And where did the black cat run across the road to him that he was so unlucky?" "Well, exactly like a scarecrow," Naruto cheerfully remarked, shining even brighter, and quietly laughed like that, covering her mouth with her palm. A ringing, but not repulsive laugh, as if the subtle ringing of several bells, pleasant to the ear. "Oh, I'm sorry." Abruptly she stopped laughing, pressing her palms to her mouth, but there was still fun in her eyes, and a sweet shamefaced blush on her cheeks. Kakashi wanted to roll his eyes, but he restrained himself. "Honey? Stop. Not cute at all. This mistake of nature can't be cute. She's a nuisance, a noisy and bright nuisance." Tenzo looked curiously at the strange girl, whose mood is as unstable as the weather forecast for tomorrow. And what can connect this obviously naive girl with an astute and very unsociable senpai? And she's so cute. Yamato even involuntarily admired her. For some reason she immediately endeared him to her, probably with her sincerity and carelessness. What a bright girl, in every sense of the word. Maybe another time. For some reason, the shinobi had the feeling that he prevented them by becoming the third extra. It seemed to him steadfastly that he saw something that he shouldn't have seen, and Senpai's gaze gently hints at it. As if he had spied a secret. "No. Even through the cha," Kakashi said sharply, clinging to a very good idea. Naruto immediately began to darken, her eyes darkened, becoming dark blue, almost blue. The harsh tone and the no sounded relieved. The grip of the tenacious, but at the same time fragile and delicate hands on his elbow weakened, and he easily escaped from her grip, feeling sweet freedom. The appearance of a teammate was an excellent reason to get out of the clutches of a small asshole. Mission? Without giving him a word to say, he grabbed the enchanted Tenzo and disappeared with him in the haze of Shunshin, but to give her her due, heavy and gloomy thoughts disappeared from his head completely while he was running from Sensei's daughter. But bad luck, their place was taken by another sore topic, tightly clinging to the brain, and her name is Naruto Uzumaki. "Did you fuck her? And all I wanted to invite you to dinner, to thank you." Again she appeared at the wrong moment, in the wrong place. The man was sitting under a tree at the edge of the forest and looked with a colorless gaze as if through a monument where Obito's name was carved. A few days ago was the anniversary of the terrible date when a former teammate, still very young and promising shinobi, Itachi Uchiha, stabbed the entire clan, becoming traitors to the village and an S-class criminal. It seemed to Hatake that he knew him well, it seemed. And for some reason, this made him sick, and the darkness inside him thickened and thickened. She has already tightly clung to the long-suffering organ, burning out the remnants of the good to the towel. Itachi showed how much darkness there is in his heart. He showed what every shinobi can turn into, in whose heart there is darkness. And Uchiha could not defeat her, becoming a merciless beast that destroyed almost his entire clan in cold blood. But why did he save Sasuke's life? Kakashi, the girl called softly, sensing something was wrong. Her appearance remained either unnoticed or ignored by them. Naruto tried to look into Jonan's single eye to understand at least a little whether it was worth talking to him now, or whether it was better to leave him alone. The blonde was very gloomy and thoughtful, and a dim look through the monument and a lost look makes her uneasy. She even felt a little uneasy. He breathed such pain and longing that involuntarily she was imbued with his experiences. It seemed as if she had spied something hidden, completely not intended for her eyes. And why is she trying to find him? Day after day she wondered about it. After all, he is so repulsive, cold, silent, always gloomy, ignores her. And this did not prevent her from looking for his blonde crown in the crowd from time to time, and when she saw him, she tried to approach. When her eyes caught his hair sticking out in different directions and his face hidden under a black mask, everything inside was strangely compressed. Attempts to talk when she kept up with him, reduced to nothing, brought only a feeling discomfort. He caused a whole storm of emotions in her, and she continued to reach out to him in order to get stuck in these strange feelings. She was genuinely infuriated by the fact that he was ignoring her. For him, Naruto is nothing more than an empty place. And it really touched her to the quick. And as soon as she looked into his eyes, she unconsciously shrugged her shoulders from the cold that was hidden in them. It even seemed to her that her own heart was covered with a thin crust of ice, although an indefatigable fire was burning in it. An attempt to help? Yes, exactly, to help. After all, he needs support, and if his heart is not warmed up, then everything that was good in him can die. Like a plant that lacks the sun now, he also looks at her as an empty place. Well, yes, it is. Empty, meaningless. Just a speck of dust, calluses his eyes, like the eyes of everyone around him, but it's lousy from the look of a man with silver hair. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she stared at Hatake. She had just realized that she was uncomfortable with the fact that he did not notice her and for some reason worried too much about his moral state. Sitting down next to her, the blonde threw her head back and looked at the darkening sky, thinking about her own, trying not to break the silence between them. Kakashi, very quietly, almost in a whisper. His name escapes from her lips and these sounds are immediately drowned in the sounds of leaves rustling in the wind, but he responds by turning his head to her. If night falls in your soul now, it's not the end. The main thing is that the night is clear, then your darkness will be illuminated by myriads of stars and the moon, and remember that the night ends with dawn. The sun will dispel the darkness, but she did not look at him, continuing to look at the remnants of the orange-purple sunset. Just about, the night will take over the sky and cover it with its dark veil. Being not interested in her company and confident that she is naive and stupid, he abruptly changes his point of view, already looking at her profile with interest. The stars and the moon are support, they will not let you get lost in the darkness, and the dawn is the beginning of something new, bright and beautiful. Even if there are clouds on the horizon, there will always be a wind to disperse them, and then you will see the sun. It will disperse the darkness and warm. Consider that the sun is happiness. Getting up from the grass wet with dew, the girl adjusted the hem of her dress and looked at Kakashi carefully, meeting his gaze. It was as if an electric current pierced her from the top of her head to her feet, forcing her to tense up and feel at least discomfort. The only visible eye looked straight and grateful. The heart trembled from the emotions it saw, which immediately surged into consciousness, and galloped off, intending to escape even through the cage of ribs. She needs to run before it's too late. No, it's too late. If she runs away from him, she will never run away from herself. She seems to like him. Now, we're even. Giving herself a mental slap, Naruto smiled broadly, and immediately disappeared from the field of view of the ANBU member, until her legs gave way from the load that fell so sharply on her shoulders in the form of warm feelings for a strange man who was supposed to cause only antipathy. Hatake was grateful to her for her words of support. She suddenly noticed the state of his soul, was able to understand what was gnawing at him, and support him. So she's not that naive. And my heart felt a little warmer. So, he had to survive the night that was inevitably coming at him. Kakashi sincerely cursed the day when the third sent him on that ill-fated mission where he had to face Naruto. Honestly, he wasn't going to get to know her at all, even help her in her deplorable situation. He did not feel sorry for her at all, and she did not cause him a drop of sympathy. Cynicism and callousness consistently protected Kakashi from unnecessary worries throughout his life. Only now the beginnings of absolutely unnecessary emotions filled his insides. That's what a meeting with this little infection does. For him, just a couple of meetings with this blonde problem of the whole village was already too much and enough for a lifetime. It would be better not to meet her at all, but no, she took and found him among thousands of residents and fell like snow on her head in the middle of the day, and even attracting too much attention to herself, and oh, how he does not like to attract him to himself. It is only for this that you can safely hate her, but this is also superfluous. It would be better for him to have nothing out of emotions for her than something. Even when he remembered her visits, he winced and prayed to all the known gods that she would avoid him from now on, and it seems that prayers helped. The lull after their last meeting lasted exactly 3 months. Hatake even sighed with relief when he saw a floating crown with 2 tall golden wheat tails, the owner of which ran past him without even deigning to look. And Kami-sama, he was so happy about this turn of events. It seems that he made up a lot of unnecessary things, imagining that she would chase him on his heels, having kindled a deep sympathy for him, which she could not hide. He even gave himself a mental slap in the face when he realized that he himself was beginning to wait for a meeting with this misunderstanding with a sinking heart. But day after day went by, and the shinobi forgot himself on missions, again dipping his hands up to the elbows in blood, trampling on the norms of morality, breaking his own soul again and again at the moment of taking someone's life, forgetting after all the light that surrounded him. After this time, the man had already forgotten about the existence of Sensei's noisy and indefatigable daughter. There was a black hole inside again, and the words of support from Naruto Uzumaki faded every day, becoming unrealizable dreams. On the horizon of his soul, the dark, impenetrable night still reigned, in some places still illuminated by dim stars, and when Naruto was forgotten like a terrible dream, and all everyday life became monotonous and filled with ordinary negative energy, and he was again mired in the abyss of darkness bubbling inside, the blonde, according to the law of meanness, appeared before him in all her impossibly annoying, striking the eyes with bright colors, beauty. It happened when he was returning from a single mission, where he did not have to put on an ANBU mask and calmly immersed himself in the beloved world of Ika, dissolving his soul into the pages of a love-erotic novel, a little envious of the main character with an adventurous life and his ability to feel vividly and sincerely. Come paradise. She stuck like a leech, pressing her whole body, appearing as if out of nowhere. Kakashi almost choked on air from the audacity beyond his comprehension. Stretching her neck and puffing, Naruto tried to read what had so absorbed him that for a minute he paid absolutely no attention to her attempts to say hello. He didn't even raise an eyebrow when she waved her hand right under his nose. She moaned softly and sweetly, bending under him, absorbing with every cell of her caress, beyond reason. Kihei licked her, Uzumaki read, clearly, loudly, with intonation, and her cheeks were filled with a scorching blush, while her eyes glided over the hieroglyphs. The heart beat excitedly against the chest with every absorbed word, reading aloud a favorite novel in front of a man who likes. It's embarrassing, but it turned all his attention to himself, wondering how he didn't notice her, and even Corny didn't smell her, became a stupid idea, because she smelled the same floral fragrance as the spring streets filled with the fragrance of flowering bushes / trees / flowers. Spring abruptly became associated with Naruto Uzumaki, and the smell enveloping her filled her nose, soaking into the cortex of the brain with poison and stupefying clear consciousness. Kakashi put the book away in time, emerging from his thoughts, until the blue-eyed one gathered an audience of onlookers around him, who turned to them with undisguised interest, warming the ubiquitous ears. Casually slapping the paperback on the curious nose of the girl, he put his favorite novel into the inner pocket of his vest, bypassing her and hurrying away, pretending not to notice her. Hey. The blonde pulled away, stroking the bridge of her nose with the pad of her finger and looking at the back of the rapidly retreating man. If you behave like this, I'll tell you what happened at the end. She ran after him, quickly catching up, slowed down, looking into his face in search of confirmation that her blackmail had worked. Kakashi almost stumbled from the fact that this little one was reading dirty books by Jiraiya Kami-sama. That's so stunned. This seemingly sweet and innocent girl turned out to have a whole bunch of devils in her head. He could not even imagine that she could like this book. I'm rereading it for the third time, he threw over his shoulder, and grinning, raised his hand up and waved goodbye to her, disappearing around the corner. This time he will not make a mistake and will be more vigilant. Uzumaki, gritting her teeth and clenching her fists, tried to calm down. No, she's definitely pissed off by his behavior towards her. His way of pretending that she was an empty place was unsettling. Yes, even with the same green beast of Konoha, he behaves warmer, although Mato, despite his age, can compete with her with his enthusiasm and optimism, and in addition with naivety, stupidity, and clinginess, although it would seem an adult man, if so. The girl rushed after Kakashi, firmly deciding that she would not miss him, because she needed the attention of this cold and impenetrable shinobi. Naruto is attracted to him by a magnet, and she cannot explain this attraction in any way. This time it was harder to surprise Captain Anbu, almost on the verge of unreal. He expertly eluded meeting her at the very last moment. A couple of times she pressed him against the wall, smiling carnivorously, like a predator before a cornered victim, but only then some stone or log fell at her feet, almost crushing her fingers and crushing her efforts into a wet spot. Damn this replacement technique. Well, nothing, it will catch, until very late in the evening, she unsuccessfully chased after him, barely managing to catch her breath. However, running after him was very exhausting. And the fact was that Hatake was already prepared for the unexpected and took her seriously, so he did not relax, masterfully hiding from her. By the way, excellent disguise training, Kakashi recommends. Of course, she drove him nobly, but it was fun to look at her angry face and listen to cute curses addressed to her. She didn't even know how to swear properly, and it was surprisingly touching. Red, disheveled and nervous, she surprised a man exhausted by an hour-long game of hide-and-seek at the very threshold of the house. He already thought that the indefatigable Uzumaki had run out of energy, or she was simply tired of following him, and their lack of play, either in catch-up or hide-and-seek, was over, but she surprised him this time, jumping on him with puppy delight, twining her neck with her raking hands, and the torso with skinny legs and pants is 2 sizes too big. I got it. Uzumaki smiled rapaciously, scorching the skin even through the mask with her confused hot breath. The fact that their faces were on the same level unnerved him even more than the proximity of their bodies. It was a terrible mistake to look into her crystal blue eyes, as well as to take a deep breath to calm the shattered psyche, because the acrid aroma of blooming spring immediately hit the nose, beating the nerve endings. But the worst thing was to feel the all-consuming heat emanating from Naruto, infecting every cell of his body. It was scary, to be honest. Get off, he reluctantly put his hands on her waist, gripping her sides tightly with rough calloused fingers and trying to pull her away from him. Inwardly, he wanted to beat his head against the wall, because all this intoxicated him. To resist her infantile charm was the height of his abilities, as it turned out. Nope, the girl concluded with a negative shake of her head, also touching her hair, which noticeably tickled the skin, causing a strange feeling that clumsily turned around in the stomach area. I spent the whole day off to catch you. And she was not embarrassed by the big age difference when she addressed him without due respect for her elders, as well as the fact that she was literally hanging on to him. Does anything bother her at all? No, After all, this is Uzumaki, who even addressed the old man third familiarly. Well, you caught me, I won't run away, just get off. Hatake surrendered. If only this little one would get off him, ceasing to squeeze all parts of his lean body into his exhausted carcass, because he was starting to systematically go crazy, and from what to a greater extent, it remained a mystery. If Sensei had been alive, having seen this ambiguous incident, he would have torn him to shreds that he dared to be so close to his daughter, and even keep his hands on his waist. Minato somehow reasoned what he would do with the negligent suitors of his unborn princess. I don't believe it, she concluded naively, clapping her piercing blue eyes, squeezing even tighter into him, clinging tighter. After all, he is a member of the ANBU, he will not have much difficulty pulling her off, he can put her on her shoulder blades in a split second, knock her out for fidelity and run far away, for example, on a border protection mission. They are long. Why didn't he do it? The answers she had invented herself gave hope that she was not so much an empty place for him. My heart was getting warmed. Do you even understand how it looks from the outside? I tried to reason with the daughter of Sensei Kakashi, pushing the desire to kill this upstart as soon as her feet touched the ground. Rare passers-by in the gathering dusk turned around in surprise, looking incredulously at the copying ninja and his notorious companion. Tomorrow, there will be interesting rumors walking around the village. To fall through the ground, together with her, so at least life will become easier. Yeah, the girl smiled broadly, and a twinkle of cunning flashed in her eyes, which led to even closer contact. Yes, where else is it closer? It must have been somewhere, because my heart skipped a beat inside, and suddenly goosebumps ran down my back. She perfectly understood how they looked from the outside, but she didn't care, let them get used to it. In addition, the blue-eyed woman, on the contrary, wanted to be with him as long as possible, and such closeness only warmed her soul. Even his hands, painfully squeezing her sides in an attempt to tear her away from him, did not spoil the naive fantasies in the blonde head. But you had fun, didn't you? She carefully looked into his dark eye, feeling herself being pulled back into this pool filled only with darkness and despair. Again Hatake was drowning in his apathy, and she was drowning in him. You're annoying and it's not fucking fun. He can no longer look away from her blue eyes, he simply does not have enough willpower to break this contact, ruining his loneliness. When did he become so weak-willed? It is necessary to reduce communication with this girl. The grip weakens, the pads of the fingers no longer dig painfully into the thin camp, starting to give warmth from touching. Fun. Uzumaki insists, loosening the ring of his hands, confident that he will never admit to himself, and even more so to her, that the day was fascinating and funny. A moment, and she grabbed his cheeks, pulled the skin hidden under the mask, forcing Hatake to smile forcibly. It took a lot of effort. Her fingers kept slipping off the thick black mask hiding the man's face. Not at all. It seems it's time for him to accept the fact that it's useless to resist her, and it's better to silently endure her merciless mockery of his psyche, and now also his body. But on the periphery of consciousness, a bright flash gives birth to the idea that it really was fun, and denying the becoming obvious fact is the height of idiocy. In fact, naive childishness, and captured him so that he even used all his professional skills running away from her, feeling inside the echoes of a long-forgotten euphoria and carefree childhood, which he almost did not have. During the day, the darkness that settled in the heart, step by step retreated under the diligent onslaught of the golden-haired, giving way to the unknown. Okay, the girl did not continue the stupid argument, having stopped mercilessly pulling his cheeks. He doesn't want to smile, well, Biju with him. Now she has found a more exciting activity, and no one forbade her to experiment. Thin fingers slid over the man's sharp cheekbones, mesmerized by their own movements, weightlessly and teasingly touching the edge of the mask. The silver-haired man froze, feeling a feeling like tenderness coming from an annoying and unbearable girl. I know it was fun. Her voice became quieter and more affectionate. The abruptly changed intonation and her actions made him imperceptibly swallow nervously, but succumb to her manipulations. This damn child's game of hers, which she started, drags her even further, deeper, to the very bottom of this very unknown, frightening with its novelty and a heap of feelings, following immediately after. What is happening no longer seems to be something stupid and innocent, filled with danger. The girl boldly moved to a new level of fun invented by her, filled with risks and bordering on sweet poisonous dope. Her fingers seemed to slide along the blade of a knife, and not along the edge of the soft fabric of the mask. The skin tingles mercilessly, the heart is thudding in her chest, filled with an urgent need to pull the edges and with a thirst previously alien to her, to examine his mysterious face. She disappeared in him irrevocably and completely, although even today she was thinking that by his behavior he would easily discourage her from any desire to see and have anything to do with him. But no, he only inflamed her with his inaccessibility, becoming the target of her stupid dreams. The rebellious enchanted ice prince of a fictional fairy tale, Kakashi is drowning in sensations, an avalanche covering him, as well as in her bright eyes. Someone else's fingers skillfully and deftly touch the strings of the soul, and not the edges of a black rag. There, in this bottomless depth, he sees a naked desire to pull off this damn mask from him, preventing him from fully feeling hot touches, and he waits to dare or not. He is waiting, and, oh horror, he longs for her bold step, because he wants more warmth from her hands, and not these careful, gentle, and absolutely deft touches through a rag. Damn obstacle. The index finger gently slides under the mask, painfully slowly picking it up. Hatake is ready to stop her, no matter how much he enjoys soft touches now, he is not ready to open up to her. Not now. Never at all. This thought is sobering. Intercepting a thin brush, he abruptly pulls her brazen palm away from his face, breaking the sudden obsession into myriad sharp fragments. Nevertheless, it turned out that she was without brakes and ready, spitting on everything, to erase forbidden boundaries, and he was not ready to part with a part of himself, to bare his soul to her and admit that he was beginning to like her attention and daring actions. Okay, not now, she understands without words, smiling, gently freeing her hand from the tenacious captivity of Kakashi's steel grip and straightens the black fabric, smoothing out non-existent folds. There is sadness in the depths of her heavenly eyes, but she obediently goes to his terms. I'll be back. The girl jumps off briskly, freeing her limbs from captivity, continuing to smile radiantly, and Kakashi suddenly feels the coolness and the sucking quagmire of emptiness. Stop it, Hatake says seriously, not sharing her enthusiasm. Her presence becomes dangerous. Uzumaki masterfully breaks his invisible barriers. And he is afraid of this. No. The girl says stubbornly, standing on tiptoe, again invading his comfort zone for a moment. The blonde again wraps her arms around his neck and quickly pulls herself up to his lips, weightlessly and dirtily gently kisses his lips through a thick black cloth, and immediately pulls away to smile slyly goodbye and scamper away, leaving Captain Anbu in wild confusion and shock. See you later. Turning around, she still smiles broadly, waves goodbye to him and disappears around the corner, leaning against the cold wall with her back and sliding down it. I'll get you out of this darkness, she whispers softly to herself, holding on to her crazy heart. And it seems not only it has gone mad, losing its rhythm at the sight of an apathetic and cold shinobi, by hook or by crook trying to avoid it. It smells like masochism. Hubie quipped, once again listening to her wild plans for Kakashi. He doesn't seem to care about you. P.F. Did not fall in love at first sight, does not mean that he will not fall in love with the second, 10th or 100th. Naruto mentally consoled herself, denying the bitter half-truth in front of Kurama's face, touching the delicate skin of her scarlet lips with her fingertips. That very day the man cursed, and it became natural to curse the days that were filled with uzumaki. He hated them with every fiber of his rotten soul, almost through and through, because they stirred up something that is not in fact in his soul. Memories of that ill-fated day burned like hell on his lips, raising a wave of something unknown, frighteningly exciting and hot in him. And all this crazy cocktail was clumsily tossing right somewhere between the stomach and the heart, disgustingly tickling the nerve endings with its paws, tearing the psyche to shreds, and principles along with it. And no, they weren't butterflies. His whole world was shaken by the arrival of Naruto Uzumaki into his calm and measured life. It's probably a family thing. In the past, his world has shaken Minato, forcing him to reconsider his unshakable views on life. Not as stable as it turned out. Now it's time to test again his impenetrability and tenacity of harsh principles. This time he is an adult man, not a boy, and only Uchiha can compete with him in composure, but all this did not negate the fact that this tender kiss sincerely presented by a bright blonde touched a nerve, and he was already reviewing his life for the presence of such lively moments. They have not been there since the attack of the fox, and now they have burst into the face of the Jinchuriki of this demon like a typhoon. You can't even call it a kiss. A light, barely perceptible and palpable touch of the lips through a dense fabric cannot be considered as such. It can't, maybe, the heart was pounding insistently, because then the lips were burned with tenderness even through the barrier, feeling someone else's warmth and love, settled on the tip of the tongue with a poisonous sweetness. And it became his nightmare. Another terrible dream, from which he woke up at night in a cold sweat, with his heart muscle going into a frenzied rhythm and a disastrous heat cramping his lower abdomen. Hatake realized that he was intimidated by people with indefatigable enthusiasm, an endless supply of positivity, and innate straightforwardness. They scare the hell out of me. And this is not exaggerated in the slightest. Even such impenetrable people like him, something should frighten. For example, the absolutely cheerful Mato guy, who instead of brains had straw flavored with rainbow yukai pollen. No other way. The green beast did not even pay attention to the coldness and cynicism of his friend and all attempts to stop communication, sincerely continuing to consider him his best friend, stubbornly believing in a miracle that Kakashi would call him such out loud. Even that mission, where Guy had to see the underside of the work of the ANBU, did not scare off a friend. The brunette came to him after a mission with a bottle of sake, and they then drank well, for the first time in the memory of the silver-haired man having been silent for quite a long time. So Mato expressed his understanding and acceptance of the fact that there is a place of rot in Kakashi's soul and you need to put up with it. And Guy then advised not only to leave the ranks of the ANBU if possible, but also to find something that would be like a lightning rod to divert dark thoughts and memories of the past from Kakashi, recalling Konoha's yellow lightning. And then Mato told about his team, about his favorite student, that this particular binding does not allow him to think about the bad and give the opportunity to absorb the horrors of the shinobi world with his head. After all, the green beast is Private Jonin, whose hands are also covered in blood, up to the elbow, of course. The copyist was even surprised that a man in tights could be sad at all. The conclusion suggests itself, and look, the indefatigable and unbearable Naruto, unrequited in love with him, can secretly become another support for the gloomy shinobi, pulling a man out of his own darkness, because she has already proved that she can support at the right moment by ceasing to clownish. Yes, Uzumaki is the same stubborn and persistent guy, only in orange tracksuits and of a different gender, but the worst thing in these reflections seemed to be that Hatake was beginning to get used to the annoying attention of the girl, as he once just got used to the attention of a man in tights, resigned himself and accepted his friendship, sometimes supporting his delusional bets, for the sake of relaxation. And in her case, he will put up with falling in love and will consider her his girlfriend behind the scenes? Sensei's daughter, with whom they have an age difference of 13 years, can become his girlfriend? Kami-sama, what is he thinking? It became difficult to keep her at a fairly long distance. She systematically filled his life with herself, even if he did not want it, and avoided it in every possible way. And the son of White Fan Konoha was afraid to think about it. In general, he also tried not to think about Naruto. It went out of hand badly. Yes, what's wrong there? If you are as honest with yourself as possible, then in no way at all, I thought, pondered, digested, remembered her bright smile, eyes beaming with fun, angular, but attractive figure. And how can I not think about her, especially when his personal hemorrhoids loom on the horizon 5 times a day, while again passing by him without even deigning to look. Of course, her blatant behavior, sharply different from what it was before, barely noticeable, but hurt him, the sly fox. When once again she ran past, yes, by, almost crushing her legs, filling his lungs with her ruinously sweet and intoxicating scent of spring, he hissed through his teeth. The sharp contrast in her behavior infuriated the eternally calm and reasonable shinobi. Did you say something, senpai? Tenzo, lost in his thoughts, caught only that Kakashi said something, and the context flew past his ears. Both Jonins were recalled from the service of the ANBU with the easy submission of the 5th Hokage who came to power and were just going to see Senjid. It seemed to you, Hataki waved off, taking out his favorite orange book from his bosom, suddenly remembering that Naruto was also familiar with the contents of it. Swearing dirty to himself, he put away the now ill-fated volume, trying to get the idea out of his head that the blonde problem, itching in one place, is not as innocent as it seems. It was strictly forbidden to think about other obscenities flowing smoothly from these reflections. One thing was clear, that this was a very, very dangerous topic, and thoughts about it were strictly forbidden, which constantly crackled and buzzed, reminding him of himself, and Kakashi still got up on this shaky ground, feeling like he was dragging. And all the willpower was not enough, but the blonde did his best not to think about the fact that the girl was familiar with Jiraiya's novel, and what this asshole could learn from there. Did you stop liking the book? Yamato's attentive eyes did not hide the fact that Senpai stopped reading Ika Ika to the holes, taking out, twirling in his hands, but without opening the already worn volume with an orange cover. And so it was every day. No, he was not going to talk. There was no mood. Tenzo, knowing Senpai's habits perfectly well, was not surprised by his reaction and silently continued walking. Since Kakashi does not want to talk, so be it. He's no stranger to it. It was a quiet horror. In another way, Hataki could not determine in any way that he was given the genin command. Yes, his whole life has gone downhill since that fateful meeting, although this time Naruto had nothing to do with it. Senju, after haranguing about the hard service in the ANBU, and all the consequences that follow from it, sent him into retirement, making him an ordinary jonin and, in addition, giving 3 back-gnawing genins for training. His life did not prepare him for this. It would be better if he was assigned to Uzumaki, like Tenzo. What the hell was he just thinking? 3 genins are better than 1 adult representative of the Uzumaki clan. Yes, there is energy in it as in the whole graduating class of genins. Of the 2 evils, the team is better. Yamato left with relative joy to get acquainted with Jinchuriki, which, if anything, he would have to tame with a Mokutan. However, Tenzo was lucky with a student, and Kakashi went with his head down to the academy to get acquainted with 3 freeloaders, and as everyone knows, trouble does not come alone. The next day proved this fact. It seems that the stars did not converge, the moon is not on Venus, and Mars does not shine to the sun, and on Saturn there are magnetic storms somehow affecting the constellation of Capricorn, so everything turned out that way. He did not have time to walk the 10th way to the hated training ground, already 3 hours late, as Naruto intercepted him. Yes, that they're intercepted. Knocked your mother off her feet, flying like a hurricane around the bend and jumping in with a strong embrace, knocking her to the ground. And he would have choked on his blonde hair if it hadn't been for the mask. Golden curls mercilessly climbed into the eyes, tickled open areas of the skin, filled the lungs with their spring fragrance. Kakashi. The blue eyes were beaming with fun, and the lips were stretched in a sly smile. And no, it didn't bother her a bit that she was already sitting astride him while he was wiping the road with himself and leaning so close to his face, and there was nowhere to pull away. Help me, huh? Yamato and I had an argument here, and I really need money." And without going into the essence of the dispute, she reached out with her raking hands to his mask while Hataki drilled her with a dissatisfied look. "No," he said, as he cut off, and as usual the ice in his voice burned Naruto's hopes. Intercepting these very raking hands right at the very edge of the mask, Kakashi tried to think about anything but their ambiguous position and the immeasurable arrogance of the blonde kunoichi. It reminded him of something and his lips burned with a ghostly warmth again. Yamato and Naruto have sung together, apparently, they are already betting, they arrange all sorts of bets, they have probably tied a friendship. "Well, Kakashi, please." Naruto pleaded, looking imploringly at Hataki, not even trying to pull her hands out of the tight grip. Wishful thinking has recently become her hobby. Cool and rough fingers, though they squeezed tightly, leaving red marks from the pads, but they gave the same warmth to which the blue-eyed woman was drawn like a moth to the fire. The heart was trying to leave the chest, accelerating to an absurd rhythm. The closeness of this man was maddening. Irrevocably in love. "I just need to look at your face without a mask." But realizing that persuasion is useless here and the cold-blooded, sometimes cynical and ruthless captain of the ANBU will not be fooled by an innocent flapping of the eyes and a pleading look, I still decided that free hands could be the key to success. The subtly sent ki of the tailed one stunned for a moment with its bloodlust, with a very high concentration of hatred of the mature shinobi. This unexpected attack discouraged Jonin, hitting him in the brain with a sledgehammer. Professional instinct worked, so Naruto did not have time to touch the mask again, having managed to free her hands in a fraction of seconds, as she was knocked to the ground. They swapped places, innocently flapping her eyes. She smiled guiltily, swallowing convulsively when the tip of the kunai was cold on her neck, and Hataki's other eye was burning with a scarlet-black flame. The famous Sharingan. As much as goosebumps ran down my back, and kurama bucked in my head. And no, she was not offended by the fact that he considered her a threat, they overdid it, wanting to impress and discourage for a moment. More worried about the fact that, having pressed her with all the weight of her body to the paved road, the girl felt as uncomfortable as possible, starting to blush and be embarrassed. Kakashi calmed his shattered nerves by putting away the weapon and hiding a friend's gift under the protector. Probably, it was necessary to nail her before she did anything else. For example, Kyubi will release by mistake, since his poisonous aura can splash out. There is no need to be smart here, and it is so clear that I used the power of the tailed one. Did she use the power of the nine tails? Naruto can't even do a banal henge. How did you use his power? He was in no hurry to get up until he heard the answers. Reading her dossier, he knew that Sensei's daughter was stupid, so she did not go beyond the rank of Genina. Was it his power then, too? And after that fateful meeting, he did not find a single mention of a medical jutsu with a golden glow, and then he was wounded with a blade with poison. Uzumaki turned pale, the blush faded from her cheeks, and her eyes filled with fright. He seems to have found some secret. No. I don't even know what you're talking about. She turned on the fool, feverishly thinking how to get out and avoid uncomfortable questions, turning her head negatively and raising clouds of dust. Kurama was lecturing that she was burned. Here it is clear to the fool that ki came out on her impulse, and not on a subconscious level, and Hataki is not an ANBU captain for nothing. Naruto, do you even realize that you are hiding important information from the elders? Hataki looked at the disheveled girl with all seriousness, trying to see the confirmation of his thoughts in the depths of her blue eyes. Tell me, when did you learn to use his power? Who did this? Kakashi said with emphasis, starting to get angry. Does she just look like a loser, shouting about it at every turn, but in fact is as insidious as the fox hypostasis of an imprisoned demon? What are you talking about? Naruto found how to solve the problem. Ingenious and simple. While the silver-haired man hypnotized her with a stern look, waiting for answers. She wrapped one arm around his neck, and with the other clinging to the edges of the mask, pulled the man towards her, and then Hataki was let down by his preparation. He could not resist even when the fabric of the mask was lowered to the base of the neck, revealing his face to the tenacious gaze of Sensei's daughter. Naruto was stunned, greedily glancing at the contour of Kakashi's face, burning the image in her mind. Although she promised herself that she would wait until he decided to take off this rag himself, allowing the copyist to open himself, but this is just a distraction. A damn distraction that attracts the eye, and unknown desires wake up inside, pushing for madness. Uzumaki is staring, memorizing, intending to memorize every line of the oval of the man's face, and Kakashi can't interrupt this moment. He can't, but he doesn't want to. He likes the way she looks, caressingly glancing at the sharp cheekbones, the rough edges of the scar, mesmerized by the line of the jaw, biting into thin lips. Thin fingers gently touch the skin of the face, echoing the movement of sapphire eyes. Hataki barely restrains himself so as not to cover his eyes with pleasure, not to give in forward, towards gentle touches. The golden-haired blonde awakens in him such feelings, the existence of which he did not even know. Naruto put her palms on her face, pulled him closer to her, with a sharp movement and her unwavering determination killing the distance between their faces. The first touch is cautious, barely perceptible, outrageously gentle and affectionate, dissolving the darkness inside him with thin rays of light, driving away all oppressive thoughts. "I would like to be the sun in your eyes," she whispers softly with a gasp, pulling away just for a moment, peering into the bottomless darkness in the depths of his eyes. The second movement of the lips is bold, more confident, frank, burning the skin, causes a wave of trembling along the spine. "I will disperse that darkness, so that it does not become me." Naruto smiles tenderly, pausing again. She would ask questions later, and there were a lot of them. For example, when did she become so bold to say something like that to Hataki Kakashi? And to kiss him so sensually? When did she drown in his gaze, get so stuck and lose herself there? The third touch completely blows the roof off, kills the remnants of reason, forces him to obey the impulse, discarding everything that prevents him from letting this sunny girl come to him. Naruto closes his eyes and gives himself to sensations, erasing all the boundaries that Kakashi so skillfully built around his callous heart. The former ambushnik does not notice how his own hand gets entangled in long and soft curls, fingering, stroking, how he deepens the kiss, hotly exploring someone else's mouth, reveling in the intoxicating humidity and softness of the tongue with undisguised pleasure. He takes the initiative, dragging her into a more dangerous and passionate game, burying her in a whirlpool of honey feelings. Bending in the back, she presses into the strong body harder, not leaving even a miserable millimeter between them. Graceful fingers tangle in the stiff silver strands, stroking, sipping. Digging deeper into Hataki's mouth, suffocating from an overabundance of tenderness, she enthusiastically responds to every torn and sensual movement of her lips. Kakashi is getting stupid, going crazy, giving himself over to a wave of feelings, hot lava flowing through his veins. The desire to be here and now next to the blue-eyed woman is growing exponentially, as is the tension in the lower abdomen. Biting, crushing, licking, he wants more and more, hotter, bolder, deeper. All of it, without a trace. Sensei's daughter has shattered the defense built up over the years, filling not only her thoughts, but also her soul and heart, tightly eating into his flesh. A sudden thought sobers the mind. The child of the fourth is still small in his understanding. They have a difference of 13 years. For him, she is still a girl, although she has crossed the age threshold when it is possible to get married and have children. It's been 2 years now. He was overcome by a sense of shame in front of Minato-sensei, filling him to the brim, forcing him to evaporate with Shunshin, leaving Uzumaki to embrace the air. He had never been so ashamed. To encroach on the most sacred thing that the teacher left behind. If he were alive, and seeing how his silver-haired student puts his tongue in his precious daughter's mouth, he would tear off not only him, but also his head, for reliability. At least Kakashi would have done exactly that. The peer to his daughter is a male person at all. But I won the argument and transferred my attention. A sad sigh escaped from the swollen and burning lips, my eyes stung mercilessly. But it all started so well. What is it this time? She shouted angrily into the void, starting to hate those cockroaches that are sitting in Kakashi's head. Nothing, she'll etch everyone, she's no stranger to it. She was able to get along with her red and nine-tailed. I was glad that the ice had moved noticeably. If he didn't care about her, he wouldn't have involved her in such a hot kiss, from which her legs would have buckled if she stood on them, and her head was still spinning. In principle, the copyist could, like last time, escape from her without even saying a word. Nothing, Kakashi, we'll be together. Getting up from the dusty road, she shook off the dirt. I will become the sun for you, and I will warm your icy soul. But it was insulting, to the depths of the soul, which was still torn by disappointment. Burning tears traced shiny paths. Was it really Kakashi? Yamato came out from around the corner of the nearest building, from the leeward side, from where his newly minted student jumped out on Hataki. He didn't come out, almost crawled out, crushed by what he saw, rubbing his eyes. That's the number, his former captain kissed his new student. No, not like that, she kissed him, and he answered, yes, so. Yamato didn't even imagine that such a thing could happen at all. Kissing Hataki is something from the category of paranormal. That's right, be sure. Uzumaki waved off, looking at Sensei with faded eyes. The euphoria from the kiss passed, disappointment and sadness from Kakashi's abrupt departure immediately came to replace it. There were more tears, and the sobs were louder. Are you okay? Tenzo pulled the girl to him, stroking her back reassuringly, because she burst into tears in a voice. I didn't expect that she could be in love with him without 5 minutes of soulless senpai. Be patient, he has to accept what you brought down on him. Kakashi is an inveterate loner at heart, and he is afraid to change something in life, because he is more used to drowning in darkness than looking at the sun, Yamato said, carefully choosing his words, continuing to calm the sobbing Naruto. Kakashi was angry at himself, at Yamato, at Naruto. But especially on Tenzo, who was standing and hugging Uzumaki, his sensei's daughter, who seems to have achieved her goal. He stood with his teeth clenched and glaring at his former teammate, definitely feeling jealous. He didn't know what to call the feeling of ownership towards this girl. And it's true, she broke all the boundaries in just a couple of months, in just 3 or 4 personal meetings, and constantly flashing in front of his sensitive nose. But there was one, a new one, which arose as soon as Naruto Uzumaki burst into his world, filling himself. The teacher would definitely not approve of such a relationship, sending Hiraishin to hell, and Kushina would also give acceleration with chakra chains. Give me the money. After a couple of minutes, the blonde wiped her eyes from tears with the sleeve of her jacket, shone brighter than the sun again, stretching out her hand to the brown-haired man. The latter, sighing heavily, nevertheless emptied his wallet, under a satisfied look. Still, Naruto is an amazing person who changes the mood like a chameleon, just sobbed, smearing snot on a green vest, and now he is smiling all over his mouth, again radiating optimism. Thank you for your support. Grabbing the money for the bet she won, the girl ran away, waving goodbye to her sensei, who finally appeared to her. Hataki turned around and walked away, thoughtfully touching his burning lips, and the words spoken by Naruto echo in his head, eating into the crust of the brain. And he was afraid that she could really become the sun for him. Naruto slowly and painfully went crazy, losing the remnants of self-control, falling into depression. It turned out that love is not such a magical feeling, as Godfather describes it in his books. To be in love, almost unrequited, with a shinobi as cold as the color of his hair, is not a fig not romantic. To be upset, to suffer, biting your elbows from worries is not at all romantic, it hurts worse than a kunai. Where is this notorious romance here? It was unbearable to get burned on his cold and stupid barriers from time to time. But the fact that she at least sometimes received in return was fine. Probably, this is the same selfless love, where you give all of yourself without a trace, without getting anything in return, each time tearing your heart into blood about the invisible spikes of Kakashi, and still you stretch with all your soul and body, harboring illusory hopes. A masochist, as Kurama once remarked, they've kissed 4 times in the past 6 months. And each time invisible boundaries were broken, getting more and more desired, Kakashi hugged her so tightly and strongly that her ribs cracked, kissed her so passionately that the remnants of consciousness were eclipsed by colored flashes, and the body shuddered from the sweet languor spreading through her veins, stroked her neck, palms, bare areas of the waist so exorbitantly when the jacket was pulled up, Naruto was ready to melt in his hands. But from time to time, the copyist ran away, as soon as he came to his senses, sobered up from carnivorous emotions, eating common sense with sensei's face and years of self-control. Damn that Kakashi. Yes, the whole Konoha already knows that they are kissing in the corners, and he keeps running away from her, hiding, bypassing the 10th road. Blue-Eyed sincerely did not understand what was the matter. Why did everything need to be complicated so much? And after all, Naruto sees that the man is also suffering, and attempts to find out what's the matter were unsuccessful. The man is always evaporated in a cloud of shunshin. And Yamato is silent as a partisan in the face of the enemy, ceasing to reveal the dark past of his senpai. But Uzumaki wouldn't be Uzumaki if she didn't know how to endure and wait. She simply did not know how to despair. Life has taught her to go forward, clenching her teeth in pain and achieve what she wants on her own. Even if she has to break herself into a cake, she will still, spitting on all the risks, go through everything that her unfair life has prepared for her. She went through universal hatred and boundless loneliness, although so many tears were shed, and how many abrasions and bruises she received, and not only her body, but also her soul. And then she will go through the stubbornness and stupid walls skillfully exposed by Hatake Kakashi, and she did not break through such barriers. He will not be forever stewing in all that darkness that entangles him, surrendering to the power of loneliness. It was necessary to fall in love with a self-sufficient man who led an almost ascetic lifestyle. Fate likes to throw obstacles and adventures at her in one place, and here she did not hesitate to give out this feint. October 10th has always been a day full of sadness for her, and today is no exception. Especially in connection with recent events. That's why this negative stream of thoughts fell on the blonde crown, burying it under an avalanche of despair and suffering, seasoning it all with unpleasant associations with this day. My thoughts were racing from painful infatuation to no less painful memories of childhood. This day has always been soaked through with longing and sadness, and not only for her, but also for most of the people of the village. She didn't like this day, didn't like it for many reasons. This is the first day of her life, which abruptly changed her fate. This is the day when her furry roommate appeared in her, because of which the whole village despised her. This is a damn day filled with burning physical pain, because tipsy citizens liked to throw stones / bottles at her, or whatever comes to hand, and they also did not refuse to let go of their arms and legs, humiliating her in a way that they did not insult on ordinary days. In the end, this is the day when the most precious thing was taken away from her, her family. But she didn't hate Kurama, she just regretted that on that ill-fated day he also fell under someone's hot hand, presumably belonging to the Sharingan bearer. Naruto has long come to terms with her situation, skillfully benefiting from it. Speaking of the Nine Tails, and she was friends with him, made friends, broke through the wall of that hatred and malice, having seen in the red eyes not only unrestrained anger and pure rage. In fact, he is her first friend, the best teacher and, oddly enough, the most native being in the world. If she could find an approach to the most terrible and powerful of Biju, considered evil in its purest form, then Kakashi definitely won't last long and will surrender to her mercy. Naruto fell asleep with difficulty. Rushing around the bed, tangled in a thin sheet that served as a blanket, covered with cold sweat, I saw nightmares, the destruction of Konoha, a childhood filled with suffering, interspersed with Kurama's hatred towards people, Kakashi, who radically decided to get rid of her presence by handing over the secret to the elders, and she is locked up forever, the devil knows where. I woke up again from this infernal cocktail, drowsily realized that it was just a dream, and again fell into a doze. It is not clear what kind of demon pulled him, but today, leaving the cemetery, where Hatake visited Sensei, and then Obito and Rin at the monument, he decided that it was necessary to visit Naruto. He always knew where Sensei's daughter lived, but he never went there, bypassing the dilapidated dormitory. Kakashi had protected his nerves in advance from a copy of the fourth, assuming what their casual acquaintance might result in. And experience has shown that having attachments is painful. Everyone he ever loved and considered friends died. That's another reason why he tried not to let Jinchuriki get close to him. Now, their acquaintance has ended with the fact that the copyist is also trying to avoid her, but for the reason that he is afraid of what their kisses can turn into, that he will tear off all the remaining imaginary prohibitions and allow the blonde to enter his life on her terms. And he didn't want to allow that, and more because Sensei would have condemned for such a relationship. 13 years difference. This evening, the copyist realized in which hole Naruto had been living all this time. What did the third old man make her go through, hiding her surname and true origin, burying Minato with the coffin and promising him that his daughter, who unwittingly became the third Jinchuriki Kyubi no Yoko, would be honored as a heroine. But what did she get in the end? Nothing but pain and loneliness, and a terribly heavy burden for a child in the face of universal hatred. He himself was in her place, carrying on his shoulders the burden of a father who committed suicide, and all he did was do a good thing, saved the team. From this followed an unbreakable principle, a set of rules that the silver-haired man was afraid to break, so as not to become the same as Sakumo, not to succumb to feelings and emotions. They are evil. And after Rin's death, they feared and despised him, considering him a murderer of comrades. Almost all friends and acquaintances turned away, whispering angrily behind his back about his callousness, not even trying to find out what really happened. All this left an indelible imprint on his character and life in general, so he lived alone. Kakashi sympathized with Naruto for the first time since they met. He had just come to the idea that, in fact, he could somehow influence this, get rid of loneliness by becoming a support, friend, brother, father. However, he realized too late when he was almost her lover. Without 5 minutes, the dim moonlight barely illuminated the one-room apartment, which was in need of major repairs, absorbed by the darkness of the night. The heavenly body silvered her fair skin, golden hair almost shimmered in the dark with liquid gold. The fragile silhouette of the sleeping Uzumaki immediately caught the eye against the background of white sheets. The gaze was mesmerized by the sleeping girl, studying the graceful curves of the body, noticing those smooth lines that were previously hidden under baggy clothes. Hatake saw her for the first time as a girl hiding behind an orange and black suit worn almost to holes. No, when she appeared again and again in his life, dragging him into a dangerous game, forcing him to walk on a sharp edge, he managed to study by heart the curve of the waist, neck, the softness of the skin under his fingers covered with treacherous goosebumps, but looking at her, he discovered new dangerous desires intertwined with rounded hips, flat belly, smooth lines of the shoulders, inviting and exciting the consciousness of the chest. Damn, he's a pervert. Hatake pressed his forehead against the wall, trying to cool the temperature that had jumped and dispel the delusion. Kami-sama, he is now like the last pervert sitting on her window, peeping, examining, almost undressing with his eyes. I would have gouged out my eyes for such an ethical crime. Now, more than ever, he understood that he was a full-fledged man who looked at women as an object of sexual attraction. He had not experienced this for a long time, and the removal from the post of captain of the ANBU in full measure made him feel all the male weaknesses. It was not difficult to get into the apartment. Slipping inside like a shadow, Jonin stood like an idol near the bed of his personal problem, unable to look away, hiding in the shadows if possible. Only his blonde hair, in which the moonlight was tangled, betrayed his presence. Uzumaki, even in such a defenseless state, hit the nurse with a full-fledged right, bringing even more problems into his life. You cannot see what you have seen, and the desires that have risen from the depths of the subconscious do not cool down with the former composure and unshakable common sense. The blonde was lying with her arms outstretched, her legs tangled in the bedspread, which had almost completely slid to the floor. The t-shirt of orange mended pajamas was pulled up above the navel, exposing the spiral pattern of fuon on her sunken stomach. The silver-haired man regretted that he had turned off the path to the house and made his way into someone else's house. Because I was mesmerized by the very misunderstanding that prevents me from living peacefully, holding my breath, afraid to inhale noisily, waking me up, scaring me away. And I just wanted to check in, make sure that everything was fine with her on this ill-fated day, but it wasn't enough to look at Naruto. I wanted to touch, stroke to feel the smoothness and warmth of someone else's skin again. Uzumaki has an amazing talent for pushing to madness. It seems that she infected him with her stupidity, pushing him to desperate actions. Naruto snores peacefully, sometimes shuddering in his sleep and shaking his head. Her sleep flows from calm to restless, and now she is all over the bed, sometimes shuddering, grabbing the sheet with thin fingers. He sits down abruptly, a half-moan, half-sob flies from the girl's lips, and blue eyes open wide, full of horror, staring at the frozen Kakashi. Uzumaki is breathing heavily, not taking her frightened gaze off the man, not quite understanding. Is she still asleep or is this reality? Yes. When will I stop dreaming about you? The golden-haired woman raised her eyes to the ceiling, clutching her head, clutched her hair with a death grip, causing even more disorder in the curls. An attempt to drive away the obsession was unsuccessful. Sighing heavily, she sat back. Never. He crouched down beside her, growing bolder. And yes, later he will regret all about it, but not now. Kakashi reaches out his hand to her face, stroking her cheek, feeling the moisture on her skin with the pads of his fingers. She has nightmares. I'm still sleeping, the blonde purred, closing her eyes, leaning forward a little, towards the unexpected caress of her personal madness. This is not going to happen soon in real life. Kakashi grinned at her quiet words. She was sure that she would get her way, it amused and a little scared. You're sleeping, Hataki quietly confirms, hiding behind the opportunity, convincing herself that she won't understand that this is reality and you can do whatever you want, within reason. Sliding the pads of his fingers along his chin, going down to his neck, he feels the girl's heart pounding furiously. I want to sleep forever. The man barely heard a quiet whisper, drowned in noisy breathing. The girl leaned forward, closer to her madness, closer to the burning caress. Kakashi, don't run away today, she asks, hugging tightly, looking in his arms for support and protection from eternal terrible dreams, from all the troubles in life that haunt her. Stupid, the man says, pressing her closer to him, stupefied by the floral spring fragrance enveloping from head to toe, going crazy from the proximity of the blonde. The palms slide along the spine, causing a herd of goosebumps that make the nerve endings work hard, absorbing gentle touches. Not a drop, she objects, not lifting her forehead from his chest, burning her skin with her breath even through the black fabric of the turtleneck. It's necessary. Uzumaki gives himself to sensations, enjoying the way his fingers get tangled in long hair, stroking the back of his head, the warmth of his body. His hands give real bliss. You underestimate me, like everyone else, she drawled maliciously, grinning, putting doubts about her mental abilities in him. So can you open up to me? He will not miss this opportunity to bring Naruto to the surface. She is almost asleep, relaxing as much as possible in his hands, and this state can untie the tongue. Is he curious about what she really is? What does the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed hide in itself? No, she drawls slyly, yawning sweetly. That's when you will be mine entirely, then yes, I will open up. Even to her hallucinations she was not going to tell the truth, skillfully controlling words, because in the world of shinobi vision / the dream may turn out to be quite real. Genjutsu is not a joke, but Hatake Kakashi is a master in it. You never know if she looked at him in Sharingan and now all this is not even a dream, but the tricks of his consciousness to bring her to the surface. It is not excluded. Even in a dream you don't lose your suspicion, the man praised her, still deeply upset by this ability, and her unshakable belief that he will still be her. It starts to scare worse than dangerous kisses. It reminds with its confidence of Kushina, who by hook or by crook calmly achieved her goal. You yourself know how dangerous the world of shinobi is, and seeping into other people's brains to extract information is a piece of cake, especially for the Yamanaka clan, and Sharingan is not far behind in this matter. The blonde grinned, hugging Hatake tighter and with one sharp jerk knocking him down on a narrow bed, trying to get comfortable in bed, throwing one leg over the man's hips. It's more convenient, at least not to fall off. So there is a chance that I am not a dream. Yes, his blood pressure jumped from this attack, to be in a horizontal position with a personal problem of a love nature, when almost all thoughts are hovering around a slender body and its beauty. Disastrous, yes, but you're a dream, the girl stubbornly declared, feeling the edges of the mask and pulling off this so infuriating barrier. You're afraid of me, like a boy, of a girl in love. Thin fingers slid over her cheeks, chin, lingering on the skin of her lips for half a minute, sliding to the scar, stroking the uneven edges. I think you will not accept your feelings soon, you need time to understand that I have captured you. However, the self-esteem of the young kunoichi also does not suffer, so much self-confidence. I'm in love with you, a quiet and hot whisper in the neck. Blue-eyed is insanely straightforward. And you have something, yes, you feel for me, since you respond to kisses, the girl reflects, laying out strong arguments about the presence of warm feelings for her from Jonan. Since I'm a dream, then, catching her wrist, he turned over, almost pressing the fragile figure of the blonde into the creaking mattress with the weight of his body. Naruto didn't even open her eyes, stretching her lips in a satisfied smile. Kakashi spat on everything, bit into the coveted mouth, allowing himself more than usual, immediately sliding between the lips with his tongue, palms getting under the t-shirt. Uzumaki moaned something indistinctly, bending in her back, wrapping her legs around his torso, pressing harder into the male body. Hatake selflessly kissed honey lips, enjoying the extremely hot moisture of someone else's mouth. Yes, she was driving him crazy, and every day the chances that he would surrender to her grew. For example, now, with an increasing desire to show this fragile, trusting body all the charms of adult love, he felt like he was ready to admit defeat. Naruto shuddered when his fingers found more sensitive areas of the skin, noisily sniffing the air, moaned into a kiss, as soon as he lightly touched the skin of his chest or hotly held his palm on the inside of his thigh, opening the veil of sensual and extremely passionate love. Uzumaki burned to the ground in these emotions, not even suspecting that she could experience something like this. A full-fledged fire broke out under the skin. Similarly, the moral principles of Hatake burned down. Stop it, she whispers into her lips, when her palm boldly climbed under the turtleneck, raggedly stroking her stomach. Drive her crazy, a couple more minutes of passionate kisses, hot and gentle touches, and that's it, right is gone. He will drown in Naruto's feelings, becoming infected with them. You started it yourself, you stop it, he whispers confusedly, digging his lips into the neck, touching the throbbing wreath with his tongue, gently biting the skin. Kakashi twitches nervously, the remnants of his mind are going to wave goodbye, pushing over the forbidden edge and disappear without a trace. Before it's too late, he stops this dangerous undertaking with one movement of his hand, plunging Naruto into sleep. Yes, it was a stupid idea and very risky. Hatake was ready to cross the boundaries of what was allowed, fulfilling his most secret and black desires, while the girl sincerely considers him a dream. The copyist closed his eyes, sighing heavily, trying to calm his shattered nerves and rapidly beating heart. In vain he came to her house at all, to make sure that everything was fine and the girl was not drowning in sadness. He must have lost his mind after all, since he came to her apartment. May Minato-sensei forgive him, but it seems that he has irrevocably fallen in love with his daughter, that he breaks into her house at night, pretends to be a dream and allows too much. That's right, you crazy pervert, senpai. Yamato decided to break the silence after all, looking expectantly at the blonde man. Kakashi reluctantly turned his attention to his friend, already assuming what topic he wanted to touch on. Is it because of the fourth? Jonan sighed heavily, looking at Tenzo with such a heavy look that he at least wanted to shiver. Hatake even already thought that everyone, absolutely everyone in Konoha was watching their relationship, and those who found those times when he was a student of Minato and knew the true origin of Uzumaki made guesses one more beautiful than the other. Yamato did not stay away and his question hit right on the bullseye. And the brown-haired man saw it, having made his conclusions very correct. You're not indifferent to her either, the teammate remarked. Do not torment either her or yourself, get together already. All former classmates, teammates, and just peers were divided into two fronts. Some were of the same opinion as Yamato, and others, that the brave shinobi is afraid of what is sealed in her. Tenzo, I'm 13 years older than her. If Minato-sensei were alive, he wouldn't approve of a relationship with his daughter. Tenzo heard so much emotion in the voice of the former captain of the ANBU for the first time in his memory. Is it really all that stops Hatake, only the age difference and self-suggestion that his teacher will be unhappy? But he's dead. The man reasonably remarked, not seeing anything like this in such a difference in years. Besides, all ages are submissive to love. And the dead remain dead. Here, apparently, the matter is different. The brown-eyed one for this mission will try to shed light on the whole thing, otherwise it was hard to see the dejected look of the student from day to day. Still, no matter how this girl smiled, he felt her bad mood. And I think, in view of the circumstances, he would be glad that it was you who became the chosen one of her heart. Yamato continued to reflect, pressing on the sick Kakashi. The fact that Hatake still admitted his feelings for her already said a lot. No, she deserves better, the copyist coldly concluded, increasing the speed to get rid of this stupid conversation. Everything about Naruto. Let it go on, but not him. As soon as she was remembered, her thoughts turned entirely to her, and her imagination immediately drew a bright and sunny image of Uzumaki, and the soul was drawn to him. She managed to sit tightly not only in the brain, but also inside the heart muscle, filling the suffering organ to the brim. The abyss of darkness reigning in the cold heart retreated under this onslaught. Uzumaki really almost became the sun in his eyes, warming his frozen soul, dispelling the darkness with just the existence, and the muscle that had been stupidly distilling blood through his veins all this time was jumping at the memories of the sunny girl, remembering that she was able to feel. Hatake also learned to feel in reality, learning about the world that he constantly avoided, steadfastly confident that he simply could not feel something bright and warm, experiencing 24/7 only pain and loneliness. The persistent opinion that this new world was not for him melted under the warm rays of the image with honey golden hair, but the past, damn it, still poisoned his life. The feeling of guilt hung like a dead weight on him, dragging him to the bottom, reminding him that these bright feelings are not for his rotten soul, and a man can only stain Uzumaki with his dirt. Kakashi, Yamato broke the silence again. Leave the past in the past, the brown-haired man advised, falling silent again. Tenzo, like no one else, understood that it was hard to resort to this advice, because he himself was branded with a dark and creepy past, and this scared off many people around him, but did not prevent him from building a personal life. There were those people who didn't care that Orochimaru was experimenting on him, and that he was in the ranks of the root. And these people were pulling him out of his personal darkness. Tenzo was sincerely glad that Kakashi also had that person who, despite his past, although the fact is debatable, she, due to her age, may not know about him, nor his disgusting and vile character, remained by his side, steadfastly enduring all the hardships and pain from the alienation of Jonin. It was a pity for Naruto, but she did not allow herself to be pitied, still smiling sweetly and radiating confidence, not a muscle showing that she was ready to cry and mourn for unrequited feelings. Probably, only such a stubborn girl will be able to cope with such a stubborn person as a copyist. For her, you are the best, she decided so, and you will not change it. The bitter truth that flew from the lips of the teammate was absorbed by poison under the cerebral cortex, poisoning thoughts. Tenzo fell silent, no longer seeing the point of continuing the conversation. Let Kakashi analyze the information dumped out, maybe come to the right conclusions. Yamato did everything he could, somehow trying to help both senpai and his student. As always, Kakashi was in no mood at all. Returning from the Hokage, to whom he handed over a report on the work done, he, as always, looked into the cemetery, sitting down near the monument. It wasn't the past that weighed on him, but he didn't want to let it go, feeling a terrible sense of guilt, which served as a reminder that he was wrong in some judgments. Obito and Rin's deaths reminded him of what a jerk he was, honoring stupid, essentially unnecessary rules. Because of his principles and selfishness, he lost a friend, and the loss of Rin became comparable to the loss of sunlight. In fact, with his selfish actions, he ruined what was so dear to his heart, even if until the last moment he did not accept this bitter truth, considering his teammates to be nobody. But it turned out otherwise. When it was too late, the very realization came that they were everything to him. Heck. Yes, even now he does not recognize Naruto's feelings, avoiding both her and his own. Is it really necessary to lose her in order to dare to recognize them? As in the case of the team, Yamato is right, Sensei is dead, he is not a hindrance, this is just an excuse, as is the age difference. He's just afraid of these feelings, afraid to forget himself in this whirlpool, to lose himself in the gloomy present. Or he is afraid to drag Naruto with him, bringing only suffering. He really is an idiot. It's not Uzumaki who's stupid, but he's a fool. It was necessary to be afraid of something that would never happen. Minato will not be resurrected, will not condemn, will not accuse of seducing his daughter. The dead will remain dead, but as life goes on, he lives and breathes, carrying the burden of guilt under his heart. And for once I wanted to change something, but no, he is a shinobi with experience. Jonin, the former captain of the ANBU, the legendary Sharingan Kakashi, is afraid of changes. No, not like that, he is afraid of the blonde and blue-eyed messenger of these very changes. Well, yes, under such persistent pressure, try not to change, when every cell of the body is already screaming that it's time to change something, and the foundations and principles are gnawing into consciousness with a death grip, saying that it's too late for him to change something, and so everything suits him, and if he leaves the comfort zone, then nothing will work out and he will make a mistake again, only causing pain to himself and others again. The decision was made immediately. Why resist further when everything is obvious and clear? He only hurts himself and her. It's time to let the immense and painfully bright sun in the face of a blonde and blue-eyed girl into your soul, covered with impenetrable darkness. It's time to say goodbye to this darkness and let the stubborn and noisy Naruto Uzumaki into your world, surrendering to the power of hitherto unknown feelings. For once, she was in a great mood. Yes, so good that the girl almost danced, humming a cheerful jamming tune under her nose, giving every passerby a charming smile. The citizens passing by habitually rolled their eyes, snorting and pulling their noses aside, saying that the fool of the whole village was acting weird again. I woke up, got out of bed and felt so elated, I haven't had such a state for a long time. And then I was still grieving for Kakashi, trying to keep the brand, smiling through pain and despair, blooming only near the silver-haired one with all the colors of the rainbow. But today, even butterflies were fluttering inside, probably tickling with their delicate velvety wings, and the eternally dissatisfied Kurama, who today decided to mumble more than usual. Uzumaki has not felt so easy and at ease for a long time. It's a beautiful day, and the weather is what? For the sake of this, you can pamper yourself with ice cream, which she hurried to do by buying a cone with an orange layer at the nearest stall. Chocolate should have been taken. The cold treat melted pleasantly on the tongue, bringing even more happiness. Real bliss, and it could have gone on for a few more minutes if someone hadn't swooped down on her like a hurricane in a pile of green leaves and smoke. Naruto squeaked loudly from surprise, smearing ice cream on her cheek, carrying the delicacy past her mouth. My heart did a somersault in my chest when a tenacious glance caught strands of silver hair sticking up. Naruto recoiled, staring in disbelief at Jonin, not understanding what he had forgotten here. For the first time ever, his close presence caused not only a whole heap of emotions, but also embarrassment. Her cheeks burned mercilessly. There was even a feeling that all the blood that flows through her veins gathered a burning blush on her face, making it brighter and clearer. Hatake Kakashi stood almost nose to nose with her, thoughtfully looking down at the blonde. Hatake was amused by this, making him grunt with satisfaction. So innocently sweet with this crimson blush, impossibly confused and unusually new. His fingers touched the mask, pulling the fabric down to his neck in one quick movement. Blue eyes widened in shock, she stared unblinking, not believing in what was happening until the last. Yes, even in her wildest fantasies, the blonde could not imagine such a thing. Always, absolutely always, she was the initiator of their relationship, finishing off his impenetrability, inclining him to surrender to her mercy. Surely it can't be that this day has become so unrealistically real, filled to the brim with unrestrained happiness? Kakashi Hatake pulled off a mask in front of her in the middle of the street, and even fished out of the crowd. The dark eye kept squinting at the white spot spreading over the slightly tanned skin. Hatake could not look away. The rapidly melting cream on his red cheek attracted all the attention to himself. No matter how he tried to stop staring, he could not. He couldn't even look away from the lips that beckoned with their softness and tenderness. A hot, moist tongue slid over a scarlet cheek, on which a bright spot stood out from the ice cream. The man with obvious pleasure licked the cloying sweetness from the delicate skin, deliberately slowly destroying the trace of sweetness, feeling his consciousness grow cloudy from such a frankly intimate gesture. Naruto struck a powerful electric charge from the top of his head to his feet, forcing him to freeze in place like a stone statue, and even hold his breath, afraid to breathe noisily, so as not to scare off the obsession. A warm wave of sensations covered every cell of the body. Uzumaki drowned in them with her head, choking, suffocating from the pleasure that followed. Is it an obsession? No, it's very real. His intoxicating closeness, strong hands pulling closer to him, hot breath tickling the skin, a look with a haze full of something new, unknown. There was no all-consuming darkness, silent despair, and skillfully disguised pain. This blackness and coldness disappeared altogether. No, this is not an obsession, not a dream, not an illusion, but quite a real reality, a tangible, exciting reality. And from this reality, the legs give way because of the critical point of excitement and the head is spinning. Kakashi, a convulsive exhalation, almost with a gasp, in a hoarse and trembling voice. The ice cream fell out of his weakened hands, falling under his feet, splattering his trouser leg with melted cream, but there was no longer any concern for him. What do you mean? What was happening at all now? She realized with difficulty, focusing all her attention on the sensations that were ingrained under the skin with a sweet poison poisoning a long-suffering heart. The poor organ was already jumping and shrinking sweetly from the presence of the copying, and then there's this. Yes, she's ready to go crazy. Kami-sama. Kakashi Hatake himself intercepted her on the street, and even decided to knock all the air out of her lungs, raise the pressure, and at the same time embarrass her to death, so that the blonde immediately fainted from an overabundance of feelings. And no, just to intercept, it was also necessary to dissolve your tongue wet and hot, tease out, goosebumps are still running through your nerves, making you experience a pleasant tickling feeling, and so, that you are mine now. Kakashi gives himself up to the seductive madness with his head, bending down again, only already sliding his tongue over his parted lips, and beckoning to touch them as gently and sweetly as possible. Naruto again gasps convulsively, noisily inhales air through his nose, grabbing his green vest with his palms so as not to fall due to weakness in his legs. The skin on the lips tingles pleasantly from someone else's warmth and sweet touch. "My son," Hataki whispers affectionately into her lips before, with all the accumulated thirst, she digs into these honey lips with a gentle kiss. Uzumaki understands with a sinking heart what he has heard, the joy of realizing that the copyist has accepted his feelings, and even confessed to them so excitingly sweetly that everything inside shrinks into a trembling lump that touches the most sensual strings of the soul. I want to scream and jump from overflowing happiness, giving myself into the reliable hands of Jonin, and at the same time basking in these strong hugs forever, melting from these roof-blowing kisses on the verge of tenderness and passion. Naruto responds with her usual emotionality, giving all of herself, giving in response a mind-blowing tenderness, which is given a sweet and languid tremor throughout the body. Clinging so touchingly to his torso, hugging as tightly as possible, caressing like a cat, looking for even more warmth and affection. Kakashi is genuinely happy, for the first time in a long time, and does not regret the decision he made, and, if possible, he will make sure that she does not regret that she decided to become the son for him. Kakashi walked to the residence with a measured step, looking at the empty streets with a tired look. In some places blurred silhouettes of shinobi flashed across the roofs, similarly hurrying to tasks. Earlier in the morning, it was also depressing that it was impossible to be late for work, as he liked to be early. This mission is very important both for him and for the others. The sun has not had time to rise yet, the sky has just turned orange-red in the tones of dawn, and he is already awake. Yawning widely, he raised his eyes to the sky in resignation. Who's so smart to get up for work so early? Kakashi frankly wanted to sleep, his whole appearance screamed that the copyist did not get enough sleep. But the bad drowsiness was immediately blown away by the wind, when the sleepy look of a single eye caught a painfully familiar blonde crown against the background of a sleeping village. Shinobi roused himself, tensed, peering into the familiar silhouette in the arms of Rock. Yes, he's going to break off his hands now. No lotus gate will help a disciple of a thick-browed one. Kakashi was boiling, slowly creeping up to the hugging couple, to catch them off guard. Bloodlust seeped through the skin, spreading its pernicious pressure for meters around. Yes, he is about to be torn to pieces by overflowing jealousy and anger. How did this beast in his filthy green leotard dare to touch his treasure? His little bright son in the arms of this lout? No, that won't do. Has she really already returned from a mission? And still not at home? Since the Hokage is not in place, so you can hang around anywhere, making out in the doorways with all sorts of, thick-browed cretins, whose spring of youth has already hit not in the head, but below the belt. She will definitely be interrogated with partiality, but after the bloody massacre of the brunette. His fists itched to stuff someone's stupid face, after which he bound this blonde at home to hell, so that no one else would covet her. And Lee did not feel any trouble, all vital instincts were dulled by the presence of a sunny girl with honey golden hair, which he gently fingered. Vigilance was lulled to sleep by a melodious gentle voice, and the gaze of big black eyes was tightly riveted to seductive plump pink lips. The man was going crazy, losing his mind near the blue-eyed girl. The silver-haired man gritted his teeth, breathing heavily and burning an angry look at Topstabrovic's back. The hand shot up by itself, firmly grabbing the dark fabric, removing the protector from the Sharingan. The black scarlet eye flashed unkindly, guaranteeing whether the hellish torment before death. It took a moment, just one moment, for him to be almost knocked down by a golden-haired hurricane. Fragile arms hugged tightly, hugging her, an unkind light burned in her sky-blue eyes. A crooked smile and lips whisper the name of the technique. They were whirled in a whirlwind, and Horation was carried away from Rock Lee, who could face his death with his own eyes this early morning. No, nothing has definitely changed in their lives. Even after so many years of living together, she could catch him by surprise, pouncing out of nowhere, clinging to his body with pincers. Naruto, though, shone as usual, just as dazzling and bright, but there was an undisguised threat in her gaze. Hatake sighed heavily, lamenting that as soon as he saw Rock, he did not tear off at least his hands. No, he had to sneak up, drowning in black jealousy and angered. Kakashi, you can't do that. Stubbornly pursing her lips, the woman said, putting her hands on her hips and drilling her husband with a reproachful look. In the depths of the dark brown, almost black eye, she could still see this thirst for murder that he exuded around him. However, she came to the village on time, completing the mission ahead of schedule. You can't hug Rock after the mission. No, his wife only delayed his death. Kakashi was still indignant, and before his eyes there was that picture. Why? The blonde was genuinely perplexed, although she was beginning to understand what was going on without explanation. She was never stupid, and she learned to understand Kakashi quickly, as soon as they started living together. And now, after so many years, the blonde again faced this problem as once, only under different circumstances. The copyist at one time believed that she was small for him, and he was an old man for her, so he made her suffer a lot. Oh, these numbers, the blue-eyed woman waved away, smiling. Numbers? The man almost had a nervous tick. There, the eyelid is already twitching, and everything was ready to explode inside. If not for the catalyst in the person of his beloved wife, he would have broken down. Clutching his heart, he was surprised that Naruto was not at all against their daughter's relationship with Rock Lee. Yes, they have a difference of 20 years. The silver-haired man was indignant, violently throwing up his hands. We have 13, not 20. He's a lustful lout with no brains. No, he will not allow his treasure to meet with a mature man, and even in tights. And in general, it's better to let everyone who is male sidestep for another 3 or 4 years. Fortunately, he can make sure that she goes on missions only with girls. P.F. Naruto waved away, wrinkling her nose with displeasure. I understand your feelings. Yes, the woman herself was uncomfortable with the fact that her daughter was growing up so fast, and already at the age of 16, like her, she fell in love with an adult man. Love, what are you doing, do you understand? Hatake rarely lost his temper, and now he was on the verge of a breakdown, a nervous, fucking breakdown. One morning, and already so much news. His life had not prepared him for this. Morally, he was not ready for the fact that one day their first daughter would grow up and, no, he didn't even want to think about it. Give him a chance, he's good, and not lustful. It's you who see a threat in every guy. Poking his chest with a finger, the former Uzumaki blurted out in raised tones. First love, the spring of youth. The woman abruptly softened, relaxed. There were no longer those dark blue notes of threat in her sapphire eyes, and her lips were stretched in a smile. She was happy for their already grown-up Naruto, and remembering herself, she calmly reacted to the fact that the chosen one is much older than her daughter. I know their spring of youth. Hormones, not spring, the silver-haired man noted skeptically, but the bloodthirsty impulse slowed down. The desire to tear off some limb did not disappear, only became weaker. He remembers Naruto at her age of 17 and her attempts to seduce him in every possible way. He hadn't even seen such ingenuity in Jiraiya's books. You never know, the daughter took after her mother, and not only externally. Beloved, fragile palms were already resting on the face, gently clasping the cheekbones, gently stroking the skin with pads. She is already an adult by the standards of our world. Although she smiled, there was obvious sadness in her voice. For me, she is still a child. The man relaxed under the pressure of affection, wearily closing his eye. That's how I decided to come to work ahead of time, because it was boring at home, no wife, no children, everyone was on missions. He was sitting alone in the walls, chained to the village by the Hokage post. For me, too, but she must live a full life. A convulsive sigh gave away with her head that Jinchuriki is experiencing sincerely, with all her heart, just does not treat it as sharply negatively as he does. We love her, And as loving parents we must understand and accept her choice, the woman concluded the well-known wisdom, weightlessly kissing her husband on the lips. The sixth sighed heavily, accepting her truth. Yes, now Hataki is right, they, as loving parents, must understand and accept the choice of their beloved daughter, yet she is really an adult by the standards of their world, almost an independent kunoichi, and by her behavior they can destroy ideal family relationships, no matter how one turns it, and she is still a teenager, she can rebel, doing nasty things to spite her parents. Overprotection was not good for anyone. Naruto rested her forehead against his forehead. The protector clanged loudly against a similar metal plate, smiling gently and wearily closed her eyes. Still, she just came from a mission and here it is. It was a discovery for her that Naruto was in love with Rock Lee, but she was able to adequately assess the situation and managed to stop her furious husband, who almost sneaked up on a couple of lovebirds with not very good intentions. But that doesn't change the fact that if anything happens, I'll rip something off for him, the man said stubbornly. Yes, then, he was right that Minato would tear off something for him, and it is better for reliability that he does not approach his daughter more than a meter, and with severed limbs you can crawl, at least, and without a head it is unlikely to come out. Being a father is even harder than being a Hokage. Kakashi is ready for the rest of his days not only to jealously guard his wife, but also his children, but judging by this morning he could have overdone his love. Agreed, honestly, Naruto was also ready to destroy the impudent if he dared to offend her daughter. And she won't blink an eye, she'll kill, without even remembering that Rock is, after all, her friend. Poor green beast, Kakashi sympathized with him, realizing that his wife still has the same opinion as him, just looks at some things with a clear look, still protecting him from fatal mistakes, guiding him on the right path. Both smiled broadly, already embracing in the Hokage's office. How fast she is, even Sharingan can mislead with her tricks. Hokage-sama, can I submit the report a little later? For a moment pulling away and blurring into a fox smile, Naruto pressed her husband to the table, leaning her whole body. Inside, as usual, a real fire broke out from the proximity of her husband. Even after so many years, the feelings not only remained the same, but also grew stronger and stronger. Hataki rolled his eye, grinning contentedly. It seems that my wife decided to remember her youth. You can, the man replied playfully and condescendingly, unbuttoning John's vest, feeling like a young boy next to this sunny and bright woman, going crazy with love, ready to love her day and night, wherever he pleases. And even in the Hokage's office, desecrating the Holy of Holies. And really, oh, this love, Anbushniki, guarding the office day and night, quietly slipped out of the room until Jinchuriki doused them with the bloodthirsty key of the nine-tailed, bringing them to a heart attack, and then there were cases, leaving Hokage and his wife alone in the office. Nothing terrible will happen until they catch their breath after resting from fasting. Kakashi was going crazy, not knowing where to put himself from the annoying Uzumaki. This girl is completely mad with love, or hormones, or from everything at once, trying to seduce him in every possible way. He categorically tried to avoid this facet of the relationship, still torn by the pangs of conscience that Minato would have torn off not only his hands if he had dared to dishonor his daughter. Still, he was still afraid of the dead. It seems that he was not ready, not she. Out, shining with all parts of the body, and screaming in a mute appeal that here I am, ready for anything, just to be with you. And the male principal screamed that it was impossible to resist for so long. After all, she's 17, which means you can not only marry her for 3 years, but have kids. But no, Hataki stubbornly continued to see her as a naively innocent child, pretending to be a self-sufficient and mature woman. It was unrealistically maddening. He was ready to fly off the rails. Yes, life with her has changed dramatically. Naruto has made his worthless existence a full-fledged bright and rich life. Kakashi was in love like a boy, his head was spinning from these feelings. And the evil-haired one cunningly used it, bringing him to such a state that he was ready to pounce on her anywhere, just to calm this invitingly aching itch in the lower abdomen. Only a sane conscience did not allow him to break down, again running away from the impudent girl. "Naruto," Jonan pleaded, fatally exhaling his favorite name. Carefully averting his eyes, he stoically did not look at the fragile, almost naked figure. Although the girl was standing with her back to him, but the refined silhouette, seductive hollows on the lower back, elastic buttocks and graceful slender legs excited nerves that were at the limit. "What is Naruto?" Turning her head to him, she arched an eyebrow questioningly, and her lips tried to break into a fox smile. The girl decided that after a joint workout, she should urgently change clothes, because it is not appropriate to walk around in wet, dirty, and sweaty clothes in front of her lover. And she didn't care a bit that she was standing here in the middle of a landfill in the woods in only orange underpants, pulling a t-shirt over her naked body. Hatake covered his face with his hands, still sighing in resignation. What a sly fox, no shame, no conscience. The man turned away, trying to control himself, although mentally he had already knocked this arrogant and greyhound girl on the grass for a long time, using all the skills of Sanon's book. P.F. Uzumaki waved away his words. Her hormones were really off the scale, and curiosity and interest, spurred on by Jiraiya's books, itched in one place. "And why are you still resisting?" She jumped on his back, hugging and tickling his neck with her hot breath. "It's none of your business." Kakashi waved her off like an annoying fly, throwing off her fragile carcass, afraid even to turn around. You never know if she decided not to dress further. This one can have everything. You won't even understand her train of thought right away. Nothing, it's a matter of time, the girl grinned, grabbing his arm and dragging him to Ichiraku. The joint training was not only exhausting, but also the appetite was brutal. And I wanted to eat not only 3 portions of ramen, but also one still not quite available Jonan, uzumaki. The silver-haired man turned away, leaning his forehead against the cool wall, because the temperature in the body in just an instant, in a short glance cast at the aforementioned blonde, heated the skin almost to white. This cunning beast definitely intended to bring him to a madhouse by trying to seduce him. What kind of attempt is this? Kakashi lost count, but he knew for sure that this was the 4th time she came out of the shower in her underwear, without really wiping off the seductively shiny water droplets on her tanned skin with a terry towel. In his thoughts he was already quenching his thirst, collecting the remnants of moisture from the skin covered with goosebumps with his tongue. "Stop treating me like a little one," Naruto muttered resentfully, leaning against him with her whole body, nimble palms burrowed under the fabric of a black turtleneck, stroking her strained stomach. "Stop tempting me, because of such attempts, he will break down, spitting on everything, satisfying his animal instincts, and this is oh so not romantic. I love you, and I want to share your whole life with you. Sooner or later you will give up anyway," the blue-eyed woman replied casually, removing her hands and pulling away. Kakashi sighed with relief, closing his eye. But she's right, sooner or later they'll cross that line. Is there a problem with Minato? With her question, she not only drove him to a dead end, but also almost knocked him off his feet. How does she know? So far, no one has dared to violate Sarutobi Hiruzen's order, although he died a few months ago from old age. And what does Minato have to do with it? Hatake was unspeakably surprised. This was the only thing that was true. She hit not an eyebrow, but an eye, and he hit it, pretending to be a fool. Well, no, how many secrets does she have, and how did she find out if she still has him in mind as her father? Despite the fact that he is my father and your teacher, with her hands on her hips, she stubbornly pursed her lips, looked expectantly at her lover, still catching his confusion, smoothly turning into shock. From where? He just asked, trying to figure out who had leaked this highly classified information to her. Even with all his love for her, he wasn't going to tell her the truth about her parents. Nine-tailed, slyly narrowed her eyes, smiling fervently, seeing in her eyes a sincere misunderstanding of what was happening. How? No, he was unable to connect complex sentences with adverbial phrases from shock. Where, how, and what does Bija have to do with it? I won't tell you. Naruto mockingly stuck out her tongue, pulling back a few steps, smiling slyly. While you and me, Uzumaki blushed, unable to say it out loud, but judging by the scarlet blush and clouded look, Jonan understood the course of her thoughts. This is blackmail. And he is torn apart with his ruthless claws by curiosity, which was stubbornly extinguished in him before. He has a lot of questions for her without that, and then there's a whole pile piled up. And there's no other way with you. She shrugged her shoulders, intending to leave already. But Hatake intercepted her, blocking the door with himself. He won't leave, he won't allow it, but there are sparks of fun in his blue eyes, and Uzumaki deliberately slowly reached into her pocket, making him tense up. Pulling out the painfully familiar kunai with 3 points, the girl smiled broadly and disappeared in the blink of an eye, quietly whispering Hiraishin no Jutsu, leaving behind even more secrets and questions. Naruto Uzumaki. For a whole week, she slipped out from under his nose with the help of the masterfully honed technique of the Flying Thunder God. How and from where? If she was the main loser at the academy, she was still in the rank of genin, having passed the exam for the 3rd time, and she did not own anything stronger than henge and replacement. And then there are already A-rank technicians, maybe she also has a Rasengan honed? He won't be surprised by anything, probably. Although, all these numerous questions overshadow the desire to see and embrace your son. He was bored, madly, without her perky laugh and dazzling smile, the days seemed gray and dull. What, Hatake Kakashi? She's not bored of playing hide and seek. Jonan had been running after her for a week in an attempt to arrange an interrogation with partiality, and she was running away. No, she missed the tight and warm embrace in which she felt as comfortable as possible, and the sweet and seductive lips passionately kissing her. But these hardships were worth it, the main thing is not to overdo it. I give up. Jonan raised his hands in the air, dutifully waiting for an answer. You know, the 4th one is glad that you are my chosen one. Honestly, Naruto, after opening the seal and meeting with her father, realized the possible reason why Kakashi avoided her for so long. That's the irony, it turned out that he was her father's dearly beloved student, so the student honors the memory of the teacher, fearing to harm his daughter or somehow discredit her. Consider Dad blessed us, winking at Hatake, who was in a state of shock again. The girl slipped away, the last locks were ready to fly off, and the pangs of conscience were about to stop. This was almost the last drop in the sea of excised patience. It is no worse than the cunning of the fox sitting in it. It was necessary to fool not only him, but the whole village at once. Neither Hiruzen, nor Danzo, nor the mummy elders found out about the small and not very secrets of Uzumaki, who from time to time discovered new sides of her nature, as well as skills. Something told Hatake that Naruto was much stronger and smarter than he seemed. Kakashi, look what I can do. She attracted his attention by intercepting him on the street, violently waving her arms and jumping on the spot. His heart feels that now she will give it away, that at least a heart attack will mow him down. Oiroku no Jutsu. Loud poof, clouds of smoke, and yes, Hatake still almost has a stroke, innocently blinking his piercing blue eyes, flirtatiously bitten finger, and below. Kakashi swallowed nervously, squinting below his face. Cursing all the gods and the cunningly woven Uzumaki, he approaches her with one leap, grabs her by the waist and throwing her over his shoulder, disappears away in a cloud of shunshin, and then many are already staring at her naked body, covered only with thin clouds of smoke, drooling and eagerly pawing with their eyes. Are you crazy? Except that his eye doesn't twitch. Roughly throwing her on the bed, he glares at the same imperturbable girl. No, I was wrong, she has almost no brains. And how he managed to fall in love with her. He goes from extreme to extreme, surprising with his actions. No, and damn it, she wasn't going to dispel the technique. Although some parts of the body were multiplied and did not resemble the familiar smooth curse at all, it was still hard to look away. Does the truth attract and distract attention? The perfect technique for a deceptive maneuver. Naruto was proud of her invention, sprawled on someone else's bed with a star. A soft poof and the technique dissipated. On a neatly made bed lies the already familiar Naruto in a black and orange tracksuit. Don't try to use it, Hatake said menacingly, crossing his arms over his chest, experiencing burning jealousy and excitement for his beloved. Are there many perverts walking around the earth, and a naked female body for many shinobi can become like a red rag for a bull, pushing for all sorts of crazy and unpleasant actions. Kami-sama, yes, he already mentally tore off everyone's hands and gouged out their eyes, who managed to look at her, although not quite at her. The illusory body was not the body of his girlfriend, but she was under this hinge, and the face was almost exactly the same. What I want, I turn, I invented it and I will definitely use it. His jealousy is like a balm for the soul, although the understanding that I went overboard somewhere inside was buzzing. You won't, he said, as if he had cut it off. By God, how the child behaves. Still, despite her age, she is still the same infantile, although she tries to behave like an adult. This incredibly infuriated him, because the blonde is his absolute opposite. Sometimes I wanted to take and shake the dope out of her head. It was too late to educate, the years were lost. I will, the blue-eyed woman frowned, crossing her arms and turning away from Jonin in an offended manner. Oh, he didn't appreciate her genius, Naruto, that's where the reason lies that he is in no hurry to cross the line. No matter how she looked and did not seem to be a hefty adult, and her naive childish behavior gave the impression that she was 12 or 13 years old, or maybe less. The image of the child was clearly layered on a seductive appearance, making it difficult to see in her a girl with whom he is ready to sleep. Yes, I want to, but that was the impression that Minato-sensei in the next world would wring his neck not only for actions, but also for thoughts. Stop acting like a child. Uzumaki felt the springs in the mattress bend, creaking softly under the weight of the man's body. Strong arms hugged her, pressing her closer to her chest. I beg you very much, do not use this technique, maybe at least this way she will listen to him. Okay, Naruto quickly gave up, closing her eyes, enjoying the hot breath scorching her neck. Settling into his arms comfortably, placing her palms on top of him, the girl relaxed. When I wanted to break the seal from the fox's cage, Dad came. Even though it was a clot of his chakra program to dissuade me, we managed to talk to him. She suddenly began the narrative in a quiet, barely trembling voice. Minato-sensei learned a lot from Kushina, perfecting his Fuinjutsu. Kakashi could only silently admire the intelligence and foresight of the fourth. At such a moment, even to think through such subtle details. There is still a loophole for Mom, but I didn't find it. Hearing her mother's name, Naruto tensed, sighing dejectedly. She wanted so much to see her, to get to know her, to feel at least for a split second not an orphan. Hatake buried his nose in the golden silk of his hair, inhaling such a favorite fragrance of spring. We didn't talk with Dad for a long time, but I managed to say all the most important things. She was reliving that excitement and wild sadness from meeting her parent, her eyes stung from tears, and her voice was hoarse. You will find it, sooner or later, a light kiss on the neck, in an attempt to cheer up the girl in his arms. So don't worry, Dad approved your candidacy for a husband. Uzumaki laughed, trying to blink away the uninvited moisture. Probably only after becoming your husband, I can die peacefully, knowing that in the next world Minato-sensei will not arrange hell for me. Hatake supported the conversation again, giving a weightless kiss to the neck area, causing a herd of goosebumps on my back. Perhaps, but if you don't marry me, then I will arrange hell already. Only a hint remained of sadness, replaced by fun. They seem to be joking, but they seem to be serious. Hubie will help me. We are great friends. She opened the veil of another mystery, basking in the embrace, exposing her neck for light kisses. Are you friends with the nine-tailed one, too? Although there was nothing to be surprised about, it was quite logical. These were just assumptions, but everything fell into place. Uzumaki, with her stubbornness, inclined even evil in its purest form to be friends with her, so she pulls from that knowledge of techniques, learning to control his energy, which is closely intertwined with her chakra. "You're not too surprised," she remarked, turning to face him, burying her nose in his neck, showering pale skin with short kisses. "And Jiraiya also taught me in secret from the top of Konoha, so Tsunade, having come to power, took pity on me and put Yamato on me, stayed too long in Genin." Yes, all the white spots in her biography disappeared. "That's where Naruto got these vulgar books from." Muae, a big lump of woven warmth, tenderness, and rising desire is turning in my stomach again. Tsunade bet that the elders and Danzo would soon go after Hiruzen, so she went against the latter's will, assigning an adequate mentor to you. It seems that he is partly jealous of her and of Tenzo, who spends much more time with her than he does. Warm palms shamelessly climbed under the turtleneck, stroking the stomach, then the back, and kisses continued to fall on the skin of the neck. I absolutely did not want to talk about such serious topics. Common sense began to fail. With every gentle touch of hot lips, I didn't want to continue the conversation at all. My lips slid along my neck, kissing my chin, cheekbones, lips. Kakashi pulled her as close as possible, killing a few centimeters between their bodies, burying his palms in long hair, surrendering to the will of the kiss, drowning in a pool of warmth and pleasure, finding himself in a horizontal position with Uzumaki, when the body aches with desire, reinforced by numerous attempts to seduce his person. The silver-haired man forgot himself, losing his common sense, allowing the wave of attraction to cover his head. Naruto experienced something similar. Asking only with the touch of her lips for more, kissing no longer tremulously and weightlessly, but more deeply and passionately, in a fit of passion intertwining her tongue with his, playfully gently biting her lower, then upper lip, erasing the last boundary in their relationship with her impulse. Kakashi broke away from the sweet lips, interrupting this crazy kiss, pushing to madness. The girl stared uncomprehendingly with a gaze darkened with desire into the only visible eye, which became almost black, reflecting a similar desire. But even with such a sensual look, he looked so serious that the girl even managed to get upset, straining her whole body that again he would leave her with nothing, escorting her out of his apartment out of harm's way. But no, smiling at the girl, he stretched out his hands to her jacket, unbuttoning the zipper. A sigh of relief escaped from the girl's lips, forcing Hitaki to grin. When the windbreaker flew away, it was immediately followed by a black t-shirt. The skin immediately became covered with goosebumps, both from excitement and from the coolness of the air that came into contact with the heated body. The copyist went crazy, touching the velvety skin, slowly tracing the line of the collarbones with the pads of his fingers, pleasantly caressing the skin of the breast with his fingers, over the edge of the bra, absorbing not only with hearing, but also with the skin noisy and prolonged sighs. Her cheeks were covered with a bright scarlet blush. Her eyes were shyly closed, her lower lip was bitten with pleasure. She was embarrassed to just sit in front of him without a t-shirt, shuddering all over her body from sensual and very teasing touches. Calloused fingers were already sliding over the black pattern of the seal. The lower abdomen was cramped from the flaring flame. How, after all, the blue-eyed woman was mistaken that she was ready for intimacy with this man. "No, I'm not ready, not a drop, but I thought on the contrary, having read the Godfather's novels, preparing for what is so vividly described there. The reality turned out to be a little different, more saturated with feelings and emotions, more frightening and impossibly sweet, honey viscous. And from all this she was lost, afraid that she would not endure these crazy sensations. Tearing down the roof, she would take and run away, and not from Kakashi, but from herself, because she was afraid to explode from such a stormy flow." Gently lowering her onto the bed, he deftly pulled off his black pants, throwing them aside, leaving only in his underwear, so that he himself would not go crazy from the fragile body that had been driving him crazy for months. Otherwise, he will not stand it, he will attack like a hungry beast, taking his own. But she deserves romance, tenderness, and not rough passion in its primitive manifestation. The blonde does not know where to put herself from the admiring gaze of a man, from his hands, giving new impressions. Kakashi hovers over her, slightly pressing into the bed, bows his head for a kiss, and then everything was blurred, on the verge of consciousness. How she pulled off his turtleneck, she does not remember, as well as the fact that she almost tore her pants, because trembling fingers could not simply cope with buttons and zipper. She remembered her loud moans when the bra flew to the side and someone else's palm covered her bare chest, squeezing, stroking, and how she clung to her stiff silver hair with a death grip, as soon as the kisses descended below the neck, sliding her tongue over the skin, driving her even more crazy. The copyist made Naruto gasp with pleasure, opening up new facets of this feeling, tearing the locks off the doors leading to forbidden and transcendent bliss. The man himself burned in his own feelings, to the accompaniment of her loud moans, under the onslaught of a supple body bending under him in sweet agony. The last barrier separating their bodies from the highest degree of unity, he simply tore. Stroking his hips, kissing them hard and passionately, he pushed them both to a new round of relations, enjoying the moist warmth, forgetting himself in sensations, snatching from reality only the ragged moans of the girl under him, trying to gently and smoothly push them to the absolute point of pleasure, reducing the muscles in sweet convulsions. And she still exploded along with bright flashes in front of her eyes, breaking into a scream, clung to Kakashi's back with her nails, trembling all over her body at the peak of pleasure, pulling Hitaki along with her, who broke into an insanely fast pace. Still trembling, she clung to him, caressed him, briefly kissing his neck, then his collarbone, recovering her breath, trying to recover. Kakashi hugged him tightly, burying his nose in the top of his head, inhaling the smell of the same scent of spring mixed with tart notes of love, blissfully closing his eyes. All boundaries have been passed, hearts are open, and Naruto has only merged with his being completely and completely, stubbornly coloring his existence with bright colors of a full-fledged life full of events. That's the end of it.